Off. Hello, my name is Brad Bodnerchuk, and welcome to the Half a Dozen Hospitality Podcast, where we discuss everything hospitality, from the food on the plate to the teams that make it happen and the community that drives this industry forward. On this podcast, we sit down and chat with some of the most exciting, inspiring, and innovative minds that make one of the most dynamic industries that there is today. And today, I have the pleasure of being joined by none other than Claire LIVIA Lassam, who I heard laughing because she was expecting me to mess that up, but I did not.
Crushed it.
Welcome to the show and good morning. How are you today?
I'm great. Thanks so much for having me.
Thanks so much for coming on the show. Many times, guys, I'm just going to tell you the honest to God truth. With this podcast, I'm blessed with guests like Claire because I randomly find them on social media and then creep their DMs, send them a note and say, please, pretty please, would you come onto my show? And people like Claire are kind enough to give me their time. I say this on the podcast all the time, and I mean it. The most valuable thing that we have is time. And I know right now you are extremely busy. We'll get into that in a moment. So thank you so much for donating, gifting your time to me in this project and the podcast.
Very happy to be here.
The first question I generally lead off this podcast with is, and I really want to do this with you because there's not much I know about you and where you come from and why, but it is just that. It is the who, the what, the where, the when, the why, the how, you and food. So take us back as far as you can. The earliest memory you have with food that you think has kind of brought you to where you're at today.
I mean, we just always were in the kitchen when we were kids. My mom was always cooking and we were just always in the kitchen. That was the heart of the household. So it was never, it's hard to, I don't know when it began and it's just always been there. But I got interested in cooking, I guess. I was like a pseudo troubled youth. I really was not troubled at all. But by comparison to my sister, I was very troubled. So my mom I went to a boarding school run by Outward Bound when I was in high school for a semester, which was this amazing program. And it was the sort of the outpost for all these trips. And then there was this group of, I think there were 16 of us who were in this program. And so there was a cook and we all used to just hang out in the kitchen there. And she would leave on weekends and leave us food to just heat up in the oven. And I thought that was really boring. So I volunteered to cook for everyone, which was a bananas thing for the program to have me do. Because like sometimes there were like 150 people there.
Oh my God.
And I was 15. And I was like, I'll just make latkes for 100 people. That was a real flop. Don't make latkes for 100 people ever.
Right.
But the experience of cooking for everyone, like that was really, I don't know, that was where it started. I came back and I was like, I want to be a cook.
Okay, cool.
And then fortunately for me, my mom had a friend who was a chef in Toronto, which is where I grew up, who helped me get a job at a great restaurant. And it just like, it clicked immediately. I remember, it was a nice restaurant, so I was not put on the line. Like I was just, the kitchen bitch. I was running around doing other people's stuff.
Right.
But I remember in the middle of the first service, them like just having me like run to go get something out of the fridge and being like, stop smiling so much. They're going to think you're such a nerd. But I was so excited, like just jacked up on adrenaline.
Right.
I was immediately hooked.
Yeah.
And so it's all I've ever done. That was when I was 17.
That's so cool. I find that that resonates a bit with me. Just you sharing that story about you smiling so much. And this industry for me has been just that. It's literally, it lights me up.
Yeah.
Now I'm not in it like I used to be. I'm not kind of on the floor. My background was all front of house. Mm-hmm. But still, even doing this podcast and having conversations with people like yourself, I get excited when you guys get excited. And I love to go out and eat and dine and do all those things. What is it about this industry that causes you to involuntarily smile like ear to ear? What is it?
Well, there's a twofold. I think with that one, it was straight up adrenaline. Like I'm not into drugs, but I find cooking on the line was such a drug for me. Like there's so much adrenaline and it's just like, that was like a very visceral thing for me that that's the only place I've ever felt that. I don't know. It's really like working on the line for me. You can sort of block out everything else and focus so intensely on one thing that your mind kind of goes blank and you get to just work and your body is working. And I mean, maybe people who play high-end sports feel that, but I don't think a lot of industries tap into that. And that was really like, it was like a drug. Like I was hooked on that feeling.
Right.
But the reason I love food is the connection. And so that is, restaurants I've hated working at were bigger restaurants where you didn't get to interact with anyone. And the restaurants I've loved working at were really small ones where you got to see the guests and you got to see how happy you made them. And you got to, talk to the producers and the farmers, and that whole process, that feeling of connection is really, brings me a lot of joy.
Right.
Yeah.
Do you feel, will that be, and we'll jump right into this if you don't mind, will that be a big cornerstone of your new business?
For sure.
Yeah. So what will that look like to me, a user coming into your new business?
Well, there's a few ways. One, we'll keep doing the farmers markets as long as they'll let us. So you'll be able to go in at the farmers market. Everyone who works at the stall has to also work in the either the kitchen or on the farm, or that's
right.
like a farmers market rule with the Vancouver farmers markets.
Yeah.
So you get to talk to the people who are making the food all the time. And then the restaurant is not going to be very big. Like it's big for Vancouver standards in that it's 1,400 square feet. A lot of restaurants are closer to 1,000. As we learned in this process, it's really hard to bake stuff out of 1,000 feet and also have seats.
Right.
But the staff is going to be small, and everyone in the kitchen will be up in the front, and there's no back loading deck. So when farmers come in and bring us their stuff, they're going to be coming through the front door, and also it's on Commercial Drive. And the reason I love Commercial Drive is the community, right? There's so many, and more so than anywhere else in Vancouver, I think there's that really strong sense of community. So you'll see me and our chef and the cooks at Santa Barbara across the street picking up groceries, and you'll see us at Jane and Z Deli down the street grabbing meat products, and you'll see us around. And I think that will help that process as well.
Right. What is it about Commercial Drive, and help the listeners that maybe aren't privy to living in the beautiful city we call home, help them understand what Commercial Drive is as far as a thing and an entity and a being. What is so unique about Commercial Drive, and why did you guys end up there?
So I ended up there because I grew up in Toronto, like I said earlier, and my whole life I was like, when I grow up, I'm going to move to Kensington Market, which is this very cool hippy dippy neighborhood in Toronto. And then I moved out here and obviously didn't stay. So that plan kind of fell through the wayside.
Right.
But it's the closest thing I could get to that. So it's a funny neighborhood because it was traditionally the old Italian neighborhood. And then it got kind of overtaken by hippies at some point. And so it's that funny little mashup of those two cultures, I think. It's a very inclusive, open area. I know almost all of the names of almost all of the homeless people in my neighborhood. Right. And generally when I walk by at 4 a.m, people have left coffees and things for them. It's right. It's really kind community. Everyone takes care of each other. But then there's this really strong food culture from the old Italian days. So there's incredibly, it's the cheapest place to buy groceries in the city because there's so much competition. They have to keep their prices low. Right. So usually it's almost on par with the wholesalers. So there's so many great green grocers. Jane and Z is my favorite deli in the city, and they've been there since 1987. And they're just these amazing Serbian women smoking the best pork products you could ever hope to eat.
Amazing.
So it's this very strong community and very food focused, and that
just made sense for you.
Yeah.
So do you live in the area as well?
I do. I've lived and worked on the drive for the better part of the last decade.
Oh my God, amazing.
Yeah. I love it.
So were you kind of scouting out, and we'll get into the business in a little deeper detail here, but were you kind of always looking at if I'm going to expand, it's going to be here?
I was always hoping it was going to be on the drive.
Okay.
I told our realtor and my husband that I was open to other places, but it was hard. Every time we went to another place, we never found the perfect space in another neighborhood. So it was, it wasn't like we found the perfect space and I had to really decide no, but I really wanted it to be on the drive. The drive also, out of the top 10 most pedestrian heavy blocks in Vancouver outside of the downtown core, 3 of them are on Commercial Drive. It's a really pedestrian heavy neighborhood, and people go there to buy food.
Right.
People from the suburbs drive in and go there to buy food every weekend. So that's hard to beat, right?
Yeah.
I want them to buy my bread.
Yeah, amazing. How excited are you to, 1, get this open, and 2, give consumers another opportunity to kind of experience your brand and what you do?
So excited. I'm equal parts just ecstatic and just crippling fear, which I think is...
That's how it should go.
Yeah, if you're not terrified of something, do you even care about it?
Yeah, that's a great point. That's a great point. As I just quit my job a month ago, and now I'm going full in with a 4-month-old and a mortgage. But back to you.
No, but if you're not scared, then you don't care.
Yeah, exactly.
So you should be terrified, but
So
you should also be pushing yourself.
how is that showing up for you then every day now as you're getting closer and closer and there's more arches being built? We'll talk about the arches in a second. If you guys follow Claire on social media, or if you don't, please do. And she's very infatuated. Well, again, I'll find out why, but her arches are very important to her.
They are. They really are.
But how does that crippling fear / excitement show up for you day in and day out?
Oh man, I'm such a mixed bag these days. Like,
Yeah.
my poor husband has just been a saint with me, because one day I'm like, this is the best thing ever. I'm so joyful. The next day I'm like, don't talk to me. I just want to curl up in a ball and cry for 4 hours.
Yeah.
It's a real mixed bag. It's what I'm learning, a ton of this process is learning a lot about things I have zero interest in learning about.
Okay.
It's like electricity. I know nothing about it. I'm not an electrical engineer. I'm not an electrician. I have never had any interest in those things. But we don't have enough power to our building, as we've learned.
Right.
We did our due diligence, and it turns out the guy who came in was not as good as we thought. So now we need to upgrade the power, and it's this huge ordeal.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm just so uninterested. But if it's going to cost me $20,000, I have to understand a little bit about it.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's really scary because like with the electricity, for instance, I don't know anything about it. And so it's trying to surround yourself with the very best people who can give you the best advice. Mm-hmm. But then at the end of the day, I still have to make the decision. And I don't know about these things. So it's this fear that like, what if I'm not surrounding myself with the best people? What if there's other things that I could be doing? What if there's another option I don't know about?
Right.
And so that's where the crippling fear comes in. Like, then I'm just like, what am I doing?
Yeah.
How do I fix this? I don't know what to do. So then I focus on the arches and like little weird details that I'm like, get really fixated and happy about.
Can we talk about the arches for a minute and what we can expect? I mean, obviously we can expect arches. So Claire's new space is opening up soon. And if you are following her again on social media, or if you aren't, go check her out at Claire Livia. And I've been enjoying her updates on Instagram stories as she focuses on the many arches in her space.
The places I love going to and the places I've loved working at are places that are fastidious about little details. Like just tiny little things that maybe some people wouldn't notice, but make you feel like someone has put in so much heart and soul into a space. And those things make me so happy. Like
so
really
cool.
Weird, detail-oriented things make me so happy. And so like there's nothing in the space right now. When we moved in, there was this giant rainbow wall.
Yes, I saw that as well.
It's weird because the space used to be two different businesses in one. It was almost like a food court space.
Okay.
And then at one point there was going to be an Ecuadorian restaurant that never opened. But they spent, I assume, a long time perfectly blending this insane rainbow wall that's like 40 feet. And we're going to re-drywall over it so it can't be painted over. But it's just bananas looking.
Right.
So like, the space it's been gutted and things are happening. But a lot of what's happening is like plumbing. And like, you go and you're like, oh, the wires that were on the left are on the right now. Great.
Right.
It's not things that I necessarily understand or can be excited about. So then when the visual things come in, like the arches, I'm like, yes, it's happening.
Did you, if you don't mind me asking, did you align with a designer?
I didn't. And this was up for a lot of debate at the beginning. I've been literally planning this since I was 8.
Oh my God, that's so cool.
We were going to call it Ramekin. My sister and I were going to open a bakery called Ramekin, which is such a weird name.
I think Livia is probably a little bit better.
I think so too. My sister still thinks it's a good name. I'm like, I don't think you're right about this. But we, I've been planning it for so long, and it would have been so hard for a designer to have come in and tried
to match what have been creating for the last X number of years.
Yeah. So I felt very comfortable just deciding it myself.
That's so cool.
Yeah.
Good for you.
Thanks.
Yeah. Wow. Just like grabbing the bull by the horns.
I have so much vision.
That's amazing. I feel like you need to. And I feel like this industry needs more people like you. And we'll get into that more in the end as I go through my little diatribe that I do. But I think that's all very empowering and very motivating that you recognize that this is something that would be difficult for someone to come in and replicate. So best that you just see it through.
Totally.
I'm sure at times it can be tiring for you because it's another aspect that you need to be watching, but I'm sure it's one, like you said, and not to make light of it, when you see those arches, it's a, oh wow moment for you because it has been this little detail in this corner of your brain for so long. Back when ramekin first became a thing. Where is your sister now, if you don't mind me asking?
She's in New York. She's not involved at all, but she's very supportive on the sidelines.
Right.
Yeah.
Is there anywhere? I was going to open up a restaurant a little while ago, but I didn't. And I always thought about putting little nuances in certain spaces that people maybe wouldn't see till like 25 years later when the restaurant was getting gutted. So is there any way we can put ramekin, like write the word ramekin,
we should put
hide
it
somewhere
inside like the drywall?
Yes, that's what I'm thinking.
Great. I like that idea actually. That's really cute. Yeah.
Just to appease your sister and let her know that yes, the ramekin lives on. Let's talk quickly, if we can, about women in this industry. I think it is an inspiring moment right now for the industry as a whole, and just how do I say this? Just business and seeing people like yourself be the leaders in this industry. My mentor is a male, but he is sure that one day women will rule the world, and I don't argue that. Do you feel like you are witnessing, or you are part of a tidal change in this industry, and seeing more people like yourself, women, becoming faces of business, becoming entrepreneurs, shifting positive change in this space?
I hope so. So one thing was talked a lot about in the industry, I'm sure you and your friends talk about this too, are like the millennial shift. Mm-hmm. Like people who are not necessarily going in and working the 16, 18-hour days every day and doing these, I think like I did that, and I'm very grateful for the experience, and it made me feel like I can do anything. But on the flip side of that, I sacrificed an enormous amount, a lot of my health. And, it's a terrible lifestyle. Nobody should do that. Mm-hmm. But I think as the industry switches away from that, we're allowing jobs that traditionally, that sort of bro-y machoism that goes in hand with those incredibly long kitchen hours, I think I hope it's over. Mm-hmm. I hope it's over. I hope it's changing. I did it when I was younger. I had so much fun. I have great friends from those days. But at 23, I remember thinking, okay, I want kids one day, so right. I can't stay in this industry forever. So how am I going to stay in food and work out another path? Mm-hmm. And that was really scary. And I'm like, now I'm 31. And as of yesterday, I know how old I am. And I don't, I still don't have kids, but at 23, I had to start planning that because I knew the industry I was in would not allow for that to happen. Mm-hmm. So I think that as we switch away from this bro-y, super long hours culture, there's an opening more for women, because even in this day and age, women tend to stay home with kids. Mm-hmm. You're a great, awesome exception to that rule.
Yeah.
But generally, those things happen. So I'm hoping as that shifts, we're allowing a space for women in the industry. It doesn't make any sense to me. We only talk about men in cooking. So, by and large. But the world over, mostly it's women who are cooking. And their stories should be told, and we should be elevating those stories and the women behind them. And for some reason, that just has not happened historically. So I do feel like we're shifting. But I think it's going to take that bro-y culture sort of dying out a little more before we really start to see it push back where it's equal.
Yeah.
We're not there yet.
I think it's interesting, and this might sound, that's okay. We just dropped a coaster on the table. I was going to say, it's interesting because I was reminded as you were just speaking there about a company I used to work for. So I worked for a company called Moosehead Breweries. I'll give them a quick shout out because they hired me and kept me employed for 5.5 years. And one thing I was really motivated and inspired by their business was it was started by a woman named Susanna Olin back in 1867.
Wow.
Back when women actually couldn't even own businesses.
No.
So she actually ended up putting the business name in her husband and her son's names. But she was the one that was brewing the beer originally. She was the one that was feeding it and selling it to these Navy men. And I'm just reminded of for so long, it has been the women that have been the ones, like the patriarchs, the ones that are cooking in the kitchens. The difference is, though, it was never a celebrated thing.
No.
Until all of a sudden men got into it. And then it was like this rock star sexy thing. But now I think we are seeing that change. So I think if you had someone like a Susanna Oland, who I believe you're kind of cut from the same cloth, you have that kind of entrepreneurial spirit. We're in a time right now where people like yourself and others are being celebrated. And like you said, that broiness is kind of being left to the wayside. And I think that is what the hospitality industry needs to be. Yeah. It needs to be a little bit, I'm going to say feminine. And only what I mean by that is feminine in the approachability. You know what I mean? It speaks to more. Exactly. The
places I've loved to work, like I said earlier, were the places where there was like this strong sense of connection. And the broy places don't have that, right? It becomes all about ego and cooking for yourself. But food, like, don't get me wrong, I take myself very seriously. I take what I do very seriously. I take my bank loan very seriously.
Yeah, exactly.
But we're not saving lives. Like, we're not firemen. We're not brain surgeons. We're not saving lives. And this like ego that goes along with so much cooking, you're just like, why? It's so unnecessary. And if that can kind of diminish a little bit, then I think we'll start to hear more of the women's stories and I think restaurants will be nicer, better places to go to.
Yeah, cleaner. It's probably smell better.
And those weird fastidious details will be there. That
Yes,
make me
the
so
arches.
Happy.
The arches. Culture is a big thing that comes up on this show, and culture within the industry, and then culture within a given person or given guest's business. What do you wish for? What will the culture be like in Livia once the doors are open?
This is something I've been thinking a lot about. It was fun. I went to go see Otto Lange last week when he was in town. And someone asked him how he was able to sort of do as much as he did. And he was like, the main thing is that I have this amazing team and we collaborate on everything. And that allows me to be able to take a step back because I know people can do what I want to do. And I don't have to worry about it because they'll be doing it perfectly. And I was thinking about it and I was like, okay, but how do you get to that point where your work is super collaborative, but also like everything he does is very distinctly Otto Lange, right? There's nothing, you've seen Otto Lange recipe and you know it's not a Lange recipe. And so how do you get a team of people to be creative within this box that is the Otto Lange sort of style?
Yeah, that's all right. And it happens.
My goal is definitely to have that culture and to have that collaborativeness.
Right.
But also to make sure it fits within sort of what I want to do. And I think that that's such a hard balance to strike. I'm so impressed that that was his answer to that question because I really... And then like, and the flip side of that is like someone else who I hugely admire is Jen Egg from Toronto. I was listening to a podcast with her recently. And she was like, someone was like, so the interviewer was like, so what do you do when you are not there and you can't control like all these little details?
Great question.
And she was like, but I do because they're all my decisions. Like, right. So like somewhere between this, like everyone knows exactly what Jen wants. And so that's how we do it. And we get to be super creative in this realm of what the Otto Lange box is. And like both of them are super commendable and I think they're both amazing. But I think I would like to be more on the Otto Lange side. But I have to sort of fight like obsessive compulsive Gen Egg.
That like dictatorship.
Yeah, because I like things a certain way.
Yeah, and I think anyone who's especially like you said, when you have a big bank loan on the line, but also it's your vision, it's your name on the business.
Totally.
So there is that. I liken it to, and so many parts of this business and this industry, I always call it a dance. It is such a dance, and sometimes it's a waltz, sometimes it's a rumba or whatever. You know what I mean? You have to recognize that. But I think the fact that you're already conceptualizing and thinking about what you do want it to look like is probably beneficial to you and your team.
Of course.
When doors open.
Yeah. I've worked at places where I felt valued and respected and, cared for. And I've worked at places where I've been treated like garbage. And so, it's what kind of restaurant do I want to own? Obviously, I want to own the first one. Like, I don't want to own a place where people are screaming and,
throwing pots and pans and...
Yeah. I worked at one restaurant that he used to dip his tongs in the deep fryer, the chef/owner, and then just go around randomly and brand people's forearms.
Jesus.
Like, I don't want to own that kind of a place. No. That's for damn sure.
Wow.
But I do want to own a place where people are able to collaborate and feel like they're part of something. I also think when you work for someone, if you feel a sense of ownership, you're going to give your best work, you're going to stay for longer, and you're going to make everyone else feel better about that because you feel that sense of pride of ownership. So it's that line of giving people the ownership and the autonomy, but also making sure it stays within the vision.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's a really tricky balance, but I'm thinking a lot about it.
The question that Jen Egg answered, I'm going to kind of ask you the same one, maybe verbally a little bit different, but how will you, or when will you be able to, in your mind's eye, step away, be at home, and just relax and not worry about who's making this and who's talking to what customer and how loud the music is and what the level of the lights are, all those things.
So did you listen to that interview where she was talking about the lights and the music?
No, but I need to go listen to it now. Really, I feel like great. We're like connecting.
I mean, it's hard to imagine in the first year getting a lot of downtime, the first year of opening, but I am really trying to surround myself with people I can trust. Right. So like the most important thing with hires is that I can trust them. The second most important thing is efficiency. People who are inefficient make me want to scream. But people I can trust, right? Like I have one guy who works for me now, and like he drives my car and I leave him in the kitchen and I can do all those things. I've definitely given him my debit card before and been like, oh, we need something. Here's the code. Right? Like that trust is incredibly important. So like hiring really great people and people who are, who are talented and passionate and who can, again, have that autonomy and that ownership, which allows them to feel that sense of pride and who can sort of own up to that so that I don't have to be all of those things for the space all the time.
Right.
We're hoping to be able to be open for breakfast, lunch, and dinner. So I won't be able to be there all the time. And that will be immediate, right? Like we'll start baking at 2 or 3 in the morning and we're going to close at 11 o'clock at night.
Right.
I can't physically be there all of those hours. No. So I think that will force me, I'm hoping it will force me to take a step back fairly early on and like sort of let some of that go.
So what can people expect? And again, talking to the local audience here in the city, what can people expect from this space? You mentioned breakfast, lunch, dinner, which is amazing. So I'm assuming different fare than people have been able to experience through the Vancouver farmers markets.
Yes.
So what will be on offer as far as food, and what will the theme be, and how do you see it playing out?
So my favorite places when I'm traveling are always places where you can go in for a coffee and a pastry in the morning, or like a little egg or something, or where you can go and grab a sandwich and lunch, or where you can sit down and have it like a nice light dinner with a glass of wine in the evening. I love those places.
Okay.
And I love those places because I think they build so much community, right? Because you end up going in multiple times a day.
Right.
And so that's what I want to create. With the side of also doing a fair bit of production bakery, which is like a bananas. Just make my life so difficult with these things. But that's the goal. So it will be Italian food.
Okay.
I'm half Italian. Livia is my grandmother's name, my Nona.
Shout out Nona.
Shout out to Nona. And so I do want to have, she was from way up north in Udine, but my remaining gotta stop doing that. Sorry.
Yeah, don't worry. I'm handsy too. That's why I put my hands in my pocket so I don't hit the boom.
So much smarter. So much smarter. So she's
from way up north.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But my aunt and uncle live in Rome, and I was raised largely on Roman food. So there will be a lot of Roman influences in the menu.
Cool.
Yeah. And then Italian style breads and bakery, which is very exciting for me because I love that stuff.
Yeah, no, me too. Can we talk products for a second in regards to like what makes up what you make? So what will make up these Roman baked goods and these dishes? How important is sourcing products to you, and what do you generally find yourself going towards? Are you going towards you want the best of the best, or are you shopping local, or where do you generally vote with your dollars personally and for the business?
I tend to find the best is local.
Okay.
So like if you want to cook really good Italian food, it's crazy to me that you would get your tomatoes in from Italy. Like Italian food is so regional and local focused. Like,
right.
Go get some local tomatoes. They're going to taste better than the ones that have been shipped across the world.
Yeah.
So for me, that's very important. I think especially with the farmers market and getting to know all the local growers and so much of that community. I love the farmers market community. I love it so much. I love the camaraderie. I love that we all show up. Like, all the berry pickers have been up since 2 or 3 in the morning. The tomato pickers have been up. Everyone's up so early, like just the way the bakers have been. And we're all sort of like loony and caffeinated. And
right.
And I love that. I love that sense of community. And I also like, it tastes better when it's grown locally.
Yeah.
It just does.
Yeah.
I remember reading something with Alice Waters, and she had like a eggplant parmesan class. This must have been in the 80s or something. I don't know why she was doing this, but anyways. But she was saying that there were 2 things that people always said. One was, I can't believe eggplant can taste this good. And 2 was, how can I make this at Christmas? And you're like, but the reason it tastes good is because it's August. And it's a local eggplant.
Yeah.
So that to me is very important. Yeah.
So seasonality as well.
For sure.
Yeah.
For sure.
Now, when it comes to your baked goods, we're talking like flours and that kind of stuff.
So right now I get all of my white flours from Anita's.
Okay.
So they're grown in Canada and milled locally. So they're milled fairly freshly. And then for my whole wheat flours, I get them from Cedar Isle Farms, who I am obsessed with.
Oh, cool.
They are truly some of the most inspiring people I've ever encountered. They have this incredible farm in Agassiz. Like, it's so picture perfect because there's the mountains behind it and these fields. And it's a husband-wife team. It was his parents' farm back in the day, but they turned it into a grain farm. They both have their PhDs in agricultural economics. They both used to write papers for the government and then took over the family farm and just come at it from this amazing perspective of wanting to change the local food economy and food security and just believing in biodiversity. And they're just
so cool.
Extraordinary people. Wow. I interviewed them from magazine I was working for at the time. And I was just like, can I just sit here and listen to you guys for like 8 hours?
That's amazing.
Yeah, they're so great. So I got my whole wheat flours from them, my oats from them. They're life-changingly delicious oats. So that's really fun to be able to work and support those kind of people.
Sorry, go ahead.
Oh, no, I was going to say, and then I just canned up a whole bunch of stuff throughout the summer so that I'll have some fruit for the wintertime. Yeah.
Is that product available
at the farmer's market?
Yeah.
You can get them. Actually, you used to be able to get them through Eat Grain, but I don't think you can anymore. You can go to the farmer's market. There will be a incredibly charming man named Yoshi there who has like a hand grinder, so kids can go and like roll their own oats and stuff. So they're sort of noticeable for that, but they're often at the farmers markets, and their product is amazing. Like, it's such a good flour.
Yeah, as soon as you mentioned that, I started thinking about Jana and Shira and the team over at Grain. I love their product.
They have a great product too.
And I love their story. I love what they do and supporting local farmers and
totally
just their brand, everything about it. I'm all about it.
Totally. We don't think about grains being local, but
when I first sat down with them, I said, what did she tell me? I think it was chickpeas. And I was like, we can grow chickpeas in Canada and lentils and quinoa and all these things. So not to get off on a grain topic here, but guys, if you haven't tried Eat Grain, please go out and support them because it's amazing. And you're supporting local, passionate Canadian farmers.
Totally. My best friend works for the Department of Agriculture, and as a country, they're doing this huge push to local Canadian grains and pulses, and there's so much diversity here that we don't think about.
Yeah, it's amazing.
It is.
We're so gifted. This country is so vast and so bountiful. Speaking of bounty, before we sat down on the podcast today, you were enjoying, which I think was great. You were enjoying, I'm hoping, a very quiet, personal time, having a coffee and a croissant in the neighborhood.
Yep.
Can we pick your brain a bit and you let us know what makes an amazing croissant?
Sure. I love croissants. Insanely. The best croissant, I think, in the world.
Yeah.
And I've got like solid backup on that, is from Pierre Hermé in Paris. And I literally was telling this to someone recently, and he was like, "Oh, you're such like a Pixar character." I like literally like cried a little bit when I ate this croissant.
Oh, amazing.
So good. So for me, with food, for pastry especially, but for most foods, like the most important thing is your crunch to gush, which is
crunch
to gush.
I feel like you need to make t-shirts right now. You need to trademark that and you need to sell them at Livia. Crunch to gush.
Crunch to gush factor. You need that like perfect shattery exterior, and the layers should be paper thin.
Right.
Right? Like you're laminating the dough in butter through this process. Like they should be so thin on the outside and they should shatter everywhere. If you're eating it in your hand, it should be all over you. If it isn't, it's done wrong.
Right.
Lean over while you're eating it so it doesn't get all over you. But that's what should happen. And then the inside should be incredibly soft and have a bit of the chew from that gluten that you've worked through the bread dough. So that's what you're really looking for. And then flavor. People are like, it's very trendy to make sourdough croissants now.
Okay.
I don't like.
You're not about that life?
I'm not about that life. I love sourdough.
Yeah.
But I think there's a real time and place for commercial yeast. And I don't want that sour flavor in a croissant. Lots of people do. It's really hard to do sourdough croissants well. So I'm like, as a feat of baking, I'm very impressed by it.
Right.
I don't enjoy it. I think that there's a time and place for commercial yeast. But good, that said, good ones made with commercial yeast, they use a Polish or a Biga beforehand.
Okay.
So you usually get like a 12-hour small amount of yeast added to a bit of flour and water before you make the dough. So there is that added flavor. So they should have that yeasty flour. Like there should be flavor from it. Right? Like a Safeway dough, they don't make that and they taste like nothing.
Oh, come on, Safeway. Step up your game.
Step it up.
I love the crunch to gush, though. I feel like if it's not going to be a t-shirt, it should probably be a hashtag in all of your posts
You're
from now
probably
on.
not wrong. I say it a lot.
Do you?
Yeah.
I love it. I mean, right away, it resonated with me. I understood exactly what you were talking about. So even to a layman. Speaking of layman, I thought about our interview yesterday, as I was making breakfast for Lindsay, my partner, and myself, and I decided I've been trying to make flourless waffles or flourless pancakes for no reason, just because I want to challenge myself a bit. And I found a recipe that called for baking powder, baking soda. What's the one in the fridge? Baking soda. Yeah. So baking powder. So I literally thought this as I pulled it out and was putting it into the bowl. What does baking powder do? And what does baking soda do?
So both of them are leavening agents.
Okay.
And they both are they're very similar. The main difference is that baking soda reacts to acid and baking powder reacts to heat. So baking powder starts working, it will start deactivating as soon as it hits water, basically. So you don't want to keep them around for too long. Like as soon as, well, that's true for either of them, I guess, but more so baking powder.
Okay.
You want to put it, like, don't make your batter, if it's a baking powder batter, don't make it the day beforehand. You will not get the same lift.
I got you.
But as soon as it gets into a hot oven, it will start rising. Baking soda takes acid. So
like milk or...
That's why buttermilk is often
buttermilk,
used in pancakes and those sort of things, because they have that acidity in them.
Right.
And that's why, like, if you don't have buttermilk, it will say, like, squeeze half a lemon in with your milk, because you need that acidity in order for the baking soda to rise.
Very cool. That was a completely selfish question, and like a little kind of like pause in the show for a second as I sat there with my mouth open, just like totally taking all that in, because now because here's my struggle, and it's come up on the show before. I've interviewed other very talented bakers and very passionate bakers and powerful women as well. I cook pretty well. Like I can cook really well. I cannot for the life of me bake.
People say this all the time. It drives me crazy. So here's the thing that's important to note about baking. Once you get the basic fundamentals, you can play around a lot.
Okay.
Like, yes, you have to measure things, but that's not hard. It's not hard to measure a cup or a teaspoon. Like, it just isn't. The people make that out like it's a big thing. It really isn't. Yeah. Get a scale, then you just pour it into the same bowl. You don't even have to measure things really.
Right.
But there's so much room to play around with. And people get so fussy about details. And like, sure, there's some things you have to be fairly fastidious about. But by and large, you know, if there's an extra quarter cup of milk in your cake batter, it's still going to be delicious.
Yeah.
If there's, you know, people get really fussy about it. But I think if you get sort of basic fundamentals, there's a lot of wiggle room that people don't think there is.
Yeah, I guess it's just, for me, it's just been fear. It's all fear-based.
Yeah.
Because I've had many experiments go very poorly. It's because I just get impatient and don't measure. So maybe I need to just hang on for a bit.
You really do.
Longer.
The measuring part is sort of non-negotiable. It's not hard to measure.
It is the science, though.
It is.
That first part, at least.
Yeah, which is what I like about it. When I'm really stressed out, I bake like cakes or something kind of precise, because when I feel like I have zero control in my life, if I bake something and I follow the recipe, it works. And that is so satisfying. Like the control freak in me is very happy by that process.
Right.
Like when I was like 19 and heartbroken and like in a bad breakup, I baked so many cupcakes. Every day I'd wake up and be like, this is the one thing I can control in my life.
Right.
And I made cupcakes.
And they turned out perfectly, I bet, every single time.
Every single time was very satisfying.
I'm gonna do something completely rogue here. Just because you're here and I feel like you're like my Google baking right now. I wanna show you something on my phone, which I never do on my podcast, but I'm gonna do it.
Go for it.
So a few weeks ago, I was we were back in Sault Ste. Marie where Lindsay's family lives, and we were going to a dinner, and we were asked to bring a dessert.
Okay.
And if you have me over to your place and ask me to bring something, I'm not gonna go to somewhere and buy something. I'm gonna like make it. I'm gonna make it from scratch.
Fair enough.
And I'm gonna try and crush it and blow it out of the water. Generally, it's not dessert because I'm not that good at desserts. Scare me. So usually it's something a little more savory. So, but this I was very proud of. So I decided I was going to make lemon curd from scratch. Which I was intimidated by, but I did it.
It's not hard once you make it right.
No, it isn't. It isn't. And then I was going to make angel food cake and then do like a layered cake.
Nice.
So I'm going to show you the photo. First, I want your honest opinion when you see it of the picture.
I'm very polite. If it's bad, I won't give you my honest opinion. I'll be really nice.
I prefer for a relationship to be just bold honesty.
No, we're going to start off on a lie. It's not good.
And then I have a question in regards to functionality of this. So we'll go with your opinion on how it looks first, and then we'll talk functionality. Are you ready?
I'm
3,
ready.
2, the reveal.
Oh, it's actually really beautiful. I really did not know it was going to come at me there. It looks great.
Yeah?
Yeah, no, it genuinely does. The other nice thing about baking is like people get fussy about the details, but like something like that where it's just sort of spilling off the edges. I think that's prettier anyways.
If you guys are not on YouTube right now, you can't see it, but I'm showing it right now to the camera. And if you guys want to just go check it on my Instagram page. But the question I had was, we were then traveling with this thing.
Oh, traveling with cakes is so stressful.
And because I cut it in half, I apologize to the listeners right now. We're completely bored by this conversation, but I'm taking a lot from it. So just be patient. If someone does make a cake like this, and it's a layered cake with some like liquidy substance in the middle of it between the layers, how do I stop the top from sliding off when I'm driving to my friend's place for dinner?
Skewers.
Skewers.
Pop them in. Right. When you take them out, move the strawberries on top a little bit over to cover up the holes.
These are the secrets of the industry that us lay people just don't know.
When you make wedding cakes for transport, if they're fairly significant, you put sometimes full dowels.
Oh yeah, I have seen that. Yeah.
Yeah, or even bubble tea straws work really well because they're quite thick, and then you can cut them really easily. Problem with dowels, you have to get out a saw.
Right.
Or a really rack a bread knife. I've done that.
Ooh.
I didn't think about the saw until I was in the kitchen. It was 2 a.m. I was like, nope, just racking a knife now.
Amazing.
But those work really well for transport. The first cake I ever made, wedding cake I ever made, was for my sister-in-law in Hawaii, and it was so hot.
Oh, God, that's challenging.
There were so many tears. So many tears.
That's just it. Baking can be so emotional because it is so finicky.
It's so finicky. Well, the air conditioning was broken in the room,
of
and
course.
so everything was melting.
Of course.
So, anyways, I just lost my mind. But then we had to transport it. And we just on the highway, flashers on, like dirt road, like 15 in an hour. I just silently cried. My father-in-law just drove so slowly.
That's amazing.
And my husband just in the back was like, "You're doing great, babe. You're doing great right now."
Great.
This is so much more emotional than it needs to be.
That's amazing. Do you have moments now where you look back at situations like that and you think, Claire, if you can do that, you can do this. Do you know what I mean? Like a guy I follow, he talks about it. It's his cookie jar. And when he is challenged by something comes up and he's daunted by it, he'll take a moment, he'll breathe, and he'll look at his cookie jar. And it's just this, not a real thing, but it's in his mind's eye. And it's full of moments in his life where he probably shouldn't have succeeded and he did. So are you using your Claire cookie jar moments right now with your business and with different challenges you're having with that, or no? Does that ever happen for you?
My husband and I were talking about this well. So every farmer's market, I work basically a 30-hour shift. So I make the breads in the morning. Sometimes I get to go home for a couple hours and sleep. And then I'm back in the kitchen at 5 and I work through till around noon the next day. So it's it's a 30-hour shift minimum. It's really long and really grueling. And I have staff, so it's fine. But I didn't for one weekend. Actually, for a lot of weekends last summer, it was really rough. But anyways, my husband came and helped because I was losing my mind.
Right.
He was like, okay, so like, what do you say to like pep yourself up when like 3 a.m. when you're dying? I was like, I just tell myself that it's required for me to do this. So I'm just going to do it. He was like, that is the least inspiring thing I've ever heard. You were the worst at this game.
Right.
And then it was like 6 o'clock in the morning and I was asking him to do something. And he was sort of like, and I was like, oh, like, is it okay? And he was like, yeah, like I just have to do it. So I'm going to do it. And I was like, see, like there's like a no nonsense thing that comes over me. I'm like, well, I just have to do it.
Black and white.
It's very black and white.
I like that.
I just have to do it. So I'm going to do it. It's required of me. And then I just do it. I'm very lucky to have been raised by people who work really hard. And so that, you know, like my dad was a doctor, and for a while he was an ER doctor while he was also in school, and he had 2 children under the age of 5. And I think,
wow,
I know, it's so crazy when I think about it. I'm like, you know, like if he was doing surgery on people in the middle of that, like, you know, if I screw up a dozen loaves of bread, it's going to be fine. Like just pull it together. No one's going to die.
Yeah.
And that makes me feel better too.
Yeah, that's so cool. A few times now you've mentioned your husband. Can we mention his name?
Sorry. As I was saying last time, I was like, I should really throw a name in here.
No, it's all right.
Jordan.
Jordan. Shout out Jordan.
Shout out to Jordan. So he is instrumental in the business, and he will be the general manager when we open up the shop.
Oh, amazing.
I know. I'm so excited.
How important, this is for people that are listening that are thinking about going down this path of entrepreneurship and opening up a business and doing all the crazy things that you're doing or have already done. But how important is it to have a Jordan in your life?
None of this would be possible without him.
Right.
And that's not in any way, shape, an exaggeration. I was working in a place and sort of just hating it by the end. It was great. I'm still very much friends with the owners, but it was not great for me at that moment. And he was like, well, why don't you just like quit your job and I'll financially support us for the first few months. And like, I was like, sure, because it'll be 6 weeks before I'm turning a profit, which is not how that played out. And he had a good job and he was able to support our family while I was building it. And then I got the incredible opportunity to repay that favor this year, which was like, felt so amazing because he also has a side hustle as a digital communications consultant.
Oh, amazing.
So that was like legitimately thrilling for me to be able to repay that. But I mean, none of it is possible without it. I am I can't stress enough how hard the 30-hour days are.
Yeah, good God, they sound terrible.
They are. And if you don't have someone who like makes you an ice bath for your swollen feet when you get home and makes you a cup of tea, and even just like he goes and picks up the stuff at the farmer's market afterwards, so I get to go to sleep midday and don't have to wake up again for 2 o'clock to go finish it up. I don't think it would be possible. Mentally, it's not possible.
Right.
And then the financial stuff, like he was, you know, he gave me that extraordinary opportunity to really put myself out there and throw myself into the business.
So that was way back when?
It was 4 years ago now.
Right.
Yeah.
Wow.
So it was huge.
Shout out to people like Jordan making this happen.
Shout out to people who like really believe in their partner's dreams and sacrifice for them.
Yeah, it's interesting. I feel like a lot of people, and feel free to jump in here and interject if you like, but I feel like a lot of people, and myself included, we kind of get the imposter syndrome sometimes, and then our partners or our power circle or our community, whatever you want to call it, they see so much more in us than sometimes we see in ourselves. And it's such a touching and inspiring, humbling, like tear-jerking kind of thing when someone's like, wow, you believe in me this much?
It blows my mind all the time. Nobody wakes up or just goes into business and it's like, I'm going to do this. I'm going to be great at it. I have no questions. Like it's the most humbling thing I've ever done to start a business. I am so attuned at the things I am bad at now.
Right.
In a way, like when I worked for other people, I was sort of able to mask some of that.
Yeah.
I'm not anymore. I'm terrible at a lot of things.
Yeah. You're exposed.
I'm so exposed. And it's so glaringly obvious when you make a mistake because you're the one who has to pay for it. And to have a partner who is really like there holding your hand and boosting you up when you have those moments of just crippling self-doubt. Yeah. And none of it would be possible without him. Yeah.
Shout out to all the partners out there. Shout out to Lindsay, my partner. Shout out to Jordan, Claire's partner, and everyone else that has, whether it is an intimate partner or a friend or a family member. If you don't have one, I implore you, go out and find one, because
go find a mentor. Go find someone.
Great point. Yeah.
You know, if you don't have someone in your life like that, like there are resources to help you.
Yeah. Maybe not Claire right now because she's a little busy, but
come to me in 2 years and we'll talk.
2 years, she'll help you out. this show is called the Half a Dozen Hospitality Podcast, and I would love for you, if you would, to define in your mind, Claire's eyes, what is hospitality?
It's making someone feel warm and included and at home.
Right.
That's the best part of food. It's the best part of drink. It's the best part of going to a great place because you just feel like you're at home.
Right.
That's always the goal, right? When you go to a place regularly and you have a server who remembers you, like, and you're just like, oh, this is so nice. Like, that's great hospitality.
Right.
Going and having something that triggers a memory for you, whether it's the kind of food you grew up with or something totally different, but that comfort, I don't know, that's what it should be.
Yeah, I totally agree.
Yeah, that's the best.
Did you want to add something more to that? Sorry, I kind of jumped in there.
No, I feel like that was it. I don't know. We went out last night to Savio Volpe for dinner.
Shout out Savio Volpe.
So delicious.
Great spot.
And our server who works there used to work at a place that was close to us. And every time we'd go in and she'd remember our favorite wine. And we didn't go there that often.
Right.
And we went in yesterday and she gave us a big hug and she brought us out like a little half glass of Lambrusco while we were waiting for our first course. And I was like, this is the nicest thing. And it's the littlest detail. You know, like it cost them like $5 to do that.
100%.
But I feel so special every time I go in there or to that old place because she was there and she remembered us.
Yeah, I think that's that. It's those details to me. That's what hospitality is. It's those little things. And I think that's what is going to allow for this industry globally, but also here in Canada and more specifically, pardon me, here in Vancouver, allow for the independence to stand out is doing those extra little bits that are super personal, those little touches that, they might take you an extra minute or an extra buck here and there, but it's going to speak to your consumers, your clients so much more. And it's going to bring them back. And for me, that to me is such an intangible piece about this industry. Yeah. And you can feel it when you walk into a space.
You can. There was a restaurant close to us that they don't do this anymore, but there's like a 6-month period. They were a local chain. And so they were sort of, I think, at that precipice where they were trying to standardize everything, which makes sense and would be very hard. But they had this like 6-month period where when you walked in, they do that like very big brandy, like, hi, I'm Claire and I'll be your server today. And I was like, I refuse to go in here while you do this.
Yeah, exactly.
Twice I was like, nope, you're half a block from my house. I'm not coming in here anymore.
Yeah.
And then went in a year later and they didn't do it anymore. I'm like, clearly someone told them that was a bad call.
Yeah.
But I hate it when places do that. Like,
it just feels so corporate.
Personal, so corporate. You're telling me your name, it should be personal, but
Yeah.
it's not at all.
It reminds me, I asked that question to a good friend of mine, a gentleman that owns, his name's Josh Vanderheide. He owns Fieldhouse Brewing out in Abbotsford. And he put it really eloquently and kind of funny, tongue in cheek. He said, I want people to feel like they're walking into my home. Mm-hmm. And I would never welcome someone to my home and be like, hello, I'm Josh. I'll be your homeowner tonight. Do you know what I mean?
Weird.
It's just, I feel like, and I get it because I think that kind of comes from what was assumed to be years ago with like white tablecloth, like very proper and like, hello, welcome. I am George. I am your server tonight.
But I feel like those like old proper places, like you didn't, because the server was meant to not be. You always wanted them there serving you, but you never wanted to actually think about it.
Right.
Whereas now I feel like that's shifted. You kind of want to know the person who's serving your table, and you want to, you want their personality to make you feel like you're at home.
Exactly. It's a little more approachable now.
It's much more approachable now, which I like.
Yeah, for sure. Now I do ask the same 2 questions in every podcast, and I'm going to ask them to you. It's going to put you on the spot, so we'll see how she does under the heat of the light. So I have for you, Claire, the half a dozen have twos. So stay with me here. I need from you 1 to half a dozen, so 1 to 6, of things you've experienced in your life, food related or not. So it could be a book you read or a trip you've taken, whatever. But 1 to 6 things that you've experienced in your life that you really, really wish the listeners to do. So 1 to 6 of Claire's have tos for our listeners.
Okay. Number 1, just like pushing yourself way outside your comfort zone in some way or form. Which I've done a lot. I'm very comfortable when I'm uncomfortable. Yeah. But I think that's come from me like doing huge camping trips when I was a kid and like physically pushing myself and feeling like I could do anything.
Okay.
So just like, but like really throwing yourself into weird situations and being like, I can do this, which I mean, maybe you can't, but just trying is really powerful.
I like that.
I wish that everyone I went to visit my aunt in Rome last year, and they also have a place in Umbria. I wish everybody could have an aunt who lives in Umbria. I wish that so intensely.
What's your aunt's name?
Sylvia.
Sylvia, are you open to people coming and just like knocking on your door and hanging out for a couple of weeks?
You know what? It's almost, well, I guess it probably just passed. No, it didn't. It's probably happening right now, the olive harvest. So you know what? She would definitely take people just showing up at her door if they helped you.
You know what? I should, after this is done, I'm going to text Natalie Ferrari Morton from East Van Jam.
I love Natalie.
Shout out Natalie. One of her haven't yet, which we're going to ask you next, was witness a fresh harvest and olive press.
I have not done it, and I'm dying to.
We got to get you and Natalie on a plane like tomorrow.
To go stay with my Sylvia and Uncle Frank.
Sorry, I interrupted again.
So 6 things that everyone should do.
6 things that, so you've done 2 so far. So 4 more that you've experienced that you think everyone else should experience.
Everyone should definitely just go to Italy and harvest olives.
Yeah.
Everyone should, this maybe ties into back to the first one, but like you should not regularly work 30-hour shifts, but doing them a couple times really pushes yourself in a way that makes you feel like you can do anything, and that's very powerful.
Yeah.
Everybody should make croissants once.
Ooh.
You will have so much more respect for the process if you make them. It is so laborious and fiddly and fun when you do them.
Can I ask you a quick question? Sorry. I will do it, and I'm gonna tag you in the process.
Oh, I'm so excited.
Can you run me down quickly on what ingredients I need? Go.
Yes. Flour, butter, salt, yeast, water.
Okay, cool. Got it. Okay.
All those little layers in croissants are put there because you fold butter, roll it out, and fold the dough. Okay. Roll it out and fold the dough, and that process. Yeah. And it's the most satisfying thing in the world because you cut into the bread, I can see all the layers.
I can see you totally geeking out on that.
It was so hard. I really.
And I mean that like the most endearing way.
Oh, I took it that way. Don't worry.
Good. That's another solid one. I like that one. I'm going to take that challenge on. I'm going to do it.
Everybody should. Oh shoot! What should everyone do? I'm feeling like very grand about this for some reason. Everybody should. Everyone should go spend time on a farm. I wish I'd spent more time on farms, and I would like to spend more time on farms. If you can go to Cedar Isle, they do once a year. They have people if you live in Vancouver, once a year they have a thing where they show people the farm, and it's such a cool thing to see. Like really understanding where your food comes from. Like when you eat Wonder Bread, you don't really think about someone growing wheat, but that's how Wonder Bread happens. Someone has to grow the wheat. So I think that's super important. And everybody should just give themselves completely and utterly to someone else in like a really intense way.
I like that.
You should be very careful about who you do that to.
Yes.
Because it can go terribly awry if you give it to the wrong person. But everybody should give themselves completely to someone. Yeah.
It's very empowering, I find, when you do that. It's counterintuitive, but I find it, for me personally, I found it very empowering.
Yeah. I don't know. Nothing comes close to that feeling.
No. Cool. That's amazing.
I think that's 6, right?
Yeah, that was 6. You did amazing.
Great.
Then next I have for you then the half a dozen haven't yet. So kind of like a bucket list.
Yeah.
So 1 to 6 things that
olive orchard. I want to go harvest olives. Clearly, that's huge.
Yeah.
I haven't got to Tartine in San Francisco, which is crazy.
Oh, okay. Nor have I.
That's very high on my list. Yeah. I have not been to Udine, where my known is from, and that's really high.
Sounds
on my
beautiful.
List. I know. It's really near the Slovenia border.
Oh, okay.
So it's like a very different kind of food.
Kind of
lots
cuisine,
of milk in it, which isn't as like lots
traditionally
of butter.
Italian.
Yeah. Well, it is traditionally Italian. Just this region that's not focused on.
Right.
Much.
Sorry. Yeah.
I will correct you there.
I appreciate that. I do appreciate that.
So that's, I really want to go to Udine. I want this stupid bakery to open. It's killing me inside right now that it's not there yet. That's very high on my list.
Yeah.
I want to, what else is on my bucket list? There's so many things. I want to write something in either the New York Times or the New Yorker. That's huge. I don't know if that will ever happen, but that's very high on my list.
Do you write?
Not well, but I'm working on it.
Okay. Can we hold you accountable to a doomsday timeline on that?
Oh God, it's not going to happen for years, but I do. There's a few food people that I really respect who write periodically for those publications, and I'm so impressed by them. And my very academic family, I think that would be like the thing that they would finally understand and appreciate.
Yeah, they'd be like, restaurant, cool. Yeah, I get it. But give me the New Yorker.
But if I got in the New Yorker, that would be, my mother would be so
like
proud.
Stop traffic. She'd bring her friends over. That's so cool.
Yeah. That would definitely be one. And I don't know.
That's good. I mean,
no, you know what? The final one. So I'm working on this right now. But this is, so my Nona, in one of our very last conversations before she passed away, she was largely dealing with dementia, but the last sort of lucid conversation we had, she said that she had a dream the night before that she was looking down on me from above, and I had a bakery, and I was famous for this one bread that was half white flour, half whole wheat flour with a semi-sweet crust.
Okay.
And so I've been working on this bread for a decade, and I don't know, I haven't figured it isn't perfect yet, but that's
wow, that sounds delicious.
Obsessive thing. Well, what does a semi-sweet crust mean?
Yeah, I don't bake, so don't, you're looking at the wrong guy.
It's so precise and weird. So I don't know. I think it's probably the kind of grain I'm using in the bread that's going to give it to me. But anyways,
that's amazing. That's so cool. What a cool story.
Thanks.
And I look forward to one day trying said bread that will probably cost a fortune, as it should. And somehow tie Nona's name into it. Maybe it'd be called Nona / Ramekin bread.
I'll just serve it in ramekins.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah. I like it. I want to take a minute to celebrate you and thank you, Claire, for all that you do and all that you have done. Although I have only known you now more intimately for 61 minutes and 5 seconds, 6 seconds, 7 seconds, 8. It's been an absolute pleasure. I had a lot of fun chatting with you.
Oh, you too.
And I take a lot of inspiration selfishly from this podcast. And now I will be watching even more closely what you're doing and supporting you and your team in any way that I possibly can, because it's people like you, man or woman, that make this industry what it is. And we wouldn't have the opportunity to dine out and experience hospitality and taste half white and half whole wheat bread with a semi-sweet crust if it wasn't for people like you. So I applaud you for putting yourself out there, taking risks. Yeah, I am truly am inspired by you and people like you. So keep doing what you're doing.
Thank you. I mean, the only way people find out about us is by people like you who tell other people about us. So it's I'm very grateful for what you do too. It's a simpatico relationship.
Yeah, no, for sure. I'm just really happy to have this platform. And again, it's very selfish for me. I just love talking about this topic and about this industry and about food. And I'm happy to use this platform for people like yourself to come on and tell your story and for people to have an opportunity to know you beyond what they already know.
Well, thanks.
So thank you for that. Thank you guys, as always, for tuning in week after week. Before we let you go, though, Claire, I would love to tell the listeners and the viewers where they can support you and how they can support you.
So the Vancouver Farmers Market, there's a list up on my website, liviasweets.com, that has a list of all the markets I'll be at. And we're hoping to open up, I mean, in a dream world, we open up next month, but realistically it's January. But it will be $13.99 Commercial Drive, and we will be open for breakfast, lunch, and dinner. So come by anytime.
Amazing. Yeah. And just so you guys know, come by anytime, but she will not be there all day because that is not sustainable.
It's not sustainable.
And you'll be there. Jordan will be there. Yep. And hopefully the hordes of people will be in the space.
Our amazing chef Dennis will be there. I can't pronounce his last name because it's long in Turkish, but he's unbelievably talented.
Shout out Chef Dennis. And you know what, guys? Know what we'll do? We will maybe do another podcast with Claire and her team, maybe in her new space at some time to help celebrate. And maybe by then, Nona's bread.
It's going to happen. It's going to happen.
I mean, you're not busy, right? You got time.
Yeah, I got totally time to do this.
Thanks again, guys, for tuning in. Claire, thank you again so much for coming on the show. Greatly appreciate your time, your energy. And you know what to do, guys. Until next time, be good and do good. That's it. You did it.
Thanks.
You did so well.